G'day boys, this is the feedback section for question 3 of assessment 4 for term 2 2011 and let's just have a bit of a look at the actual question. So you can see the question here has been highlighted, which was the 12 marker. Analyse how an athlete can train for improved performance in terms of anaerobic training, power and speed. Specifically power and speed there. So obviously the key word there is the analyse, and in this context with the analysis we're looking at the drawing out and relating implications of how these ways of training can improve performance. So it's not just simply this part. Obviously you have to do the first bit where it says identify the way you can actually train for power and speed, but you also have to analyse it and say, well, this is what they're doing and this is why it improves power, and then this is why improving power will improve performance. So it's a 3-step process. What are they doing? How does that improve power? How does that power improve performance? All right, and obviously the key are these relevant examples. That is vital, and to be honest, no one really nailed the example part for this question. No one got 12 out of 12. The highest was 11 out of 12. So let's just have a look first off at the syllabus, which I really should have had open earlier for you. But so obviously with this type of with training to improve your power and speed, you're looking here at the anaerobic training, and specifically you need to mention these 3 areas. So developing the power through resistance or weight training, how are you going to do that? Or how would an athlete do that? Developing the power or speed through plyometrics, how would they go about that? Why does that improve power? And also improving their power and speed through short interval training. So it's those 3 things. Nothing else for this answer matters in regards to strength training. Some of you both mentioned the elastic bands. As far as our syllabus goes, that's not part of this area here for the anaerobic training. Some of you guys mentioned fartlek training. Again, not relevant to power and speed athletes because they are a different breed. Their events are of a different nature to the aerobic athletes. Okay, so it's vitally important that you know the 3 areas of anaerobic training are the ones listed here in the syllabus. Okay, so that's the first thing I'll say is that all of you must need to, or you must know those things. So let's just have a look at a couple of sample answers that we've got here. Now this first one is a pretty good answer. You can see here he's listed the 3 areas, so resistance / weight training, plyometrics and short interval. So it's clear to the marker that he knows his syllabus. He knows that to train for anaerobic performance improvement, that's what he has to do. And if you look here, when he talks about resistance or weight training, he mentions what sort of load it will be, so medium to heavy load. And also, so he's given a percentage. You could have 80%, anything between 70 to 90 would have got you a pass. What we steer away from here is saying that you lift your maximum, because if you lift your maximum, you're not going to be lifting the weight quick enough to develop power. Because remember, we're looking at how quickly, power relates to how quickly you can do a contraction. So he's mentioned here that the activity needs to be performed quickly. There's power here. Power is a combination there of speed and maximal strength. He's told how many reps, or he said how many reps you need to do, how many sets of each exercise. And here, this is a photocopy, but that's my red pen. I've written that's an excellent little description, but what he needs to do here is give an example now of how this improved power is going to improve performance. That would have just made that answer. I've written on a couple of, or a lot of your answers, you need to give the specific principles behind weight training for power. And by the specific principles, this is what I'm talking about. The medium heavy load, 70-80% of their max repetitions. How many reps, how many sets, and what sort of movement speed are you doing it at? Okay, so that was very, very good what he's done here, but he just has no example. His plyometrics description is pretty good because he's mentioned about the fact that it's an eccentric contraction followed by a rapid concentric contraction. He's mentioned that it's an explosive type movement. You must have, for the higher order answers, eccentric followed by concentric contractions. And he's also listed why that's relevant, because he's saying, you know, the energy is lost here, but there is a little bit of the energy that's retained. something stored here in the elastic part of the muscles, and that's how the theory, that's the principle behind plyometrics training. That's why it's done. His example, I've written here, you could use a better example of plyometrics here. That's a pretty, he's tried to combine a sporting example with a training example, but what you need to do to get the full marks is to have a training example, e.g. jumping off a box and as soon as you hit the ground springing back up, followed, so that's the specific example of plyometrics, followed by an example of where that leg power would be relevant in a sport, e.g. jumping up to get, it's going to help a basketballer to jump up to get a rebound because he's got more power in his legs, thus helping him jump because that's a a rapid contraction. So very good explanation of the principles here of plyometrics, but the example, he did have a crack at it, but he could do better with that example there. But you can see here again he's justifying what he's saying in his analysis because he's talking about the speed of the movement. Now moving on to the third area, he's talking about short interval training. He's aware that it's not just one system, it's ATP, PC and the lactic acid system, so obviously there's going to be different time frames that you work for, but the principles of this is that you're training as close to your max as possible, and he's saying here that there's a work-rest ratio of 1 to 3, and so he's explained what that actually means, and he's given a little example here of a soccer player trying to improve his ATP PC system, which is very good. This is all good. As you can see there, that's a red pen there saying good. Probably should have said very good. So that's excellent. And he's moved on here now to talking about the lactic acid, working the lactic acid system. And he's written here, he's sort of working at 80 to 90% of their max. You'd want to be 90 plus, or 88% is about where the anaerobic threshold is. You want to be above that anaerobic threshold. So he has mentioned 90%, but scrap the 80% there and keep it 90% plus, because that's what you need to be working in to work the lactic acid system. But again, he's done a pretty good explanation of both principles behind the training the ATP, PC and the lactic acid system. And you can see my final comment here is there's a good answer, but all he's missing is the specific sporting example showing where this improvement in power is going to help improve a person's performance. So that's one example of a sample answer. The other one here, which was a actual 10, he set this answer out really well. Mentioned the 3 areas. I'll just slowly flick through it. I won't give as much detailed commentary as I did for that last one. But again, medium heavy load, 80-90%. There's the number of reps, there's the number of sets, fast pace, again, critical. So very, very good, but no example. Plyometrics, again, you see the eccentric, concentric, and why, that's the theory behind it. Very good. So immediate rapid contractions is what we're after. And he's saying this helps improve the explosiveness and power. Very good. But no sporting example. Then he's gone on to short interval training. A bit of red pen underlining would be fantastic, but obviously I can read what he's written. Short interval training here, talking about the principles again. The work to rest ratio is here, and obviously the theories behind it. He's mentioning about the ATP PC system, and also then he talks about the lactic acid system. He talks about why the recovery periods are what they are, because based on the amount of lactate built up in the system, and obviously the more that you train, or the more you train at those higher intensities, the more lactic acid is going to be built up. So then obviously the longer the rest is going to need to be, but the ratio stays the same at 1 to 3. And that's his answer. So very, very good answer in theory, but as you can see from my comment here, he just hasn't given any examples to show the final step, which is how this improvement in power will improve performance in particular events. So and I've written there, that's the analysis part. So again, it's a 3-step analysis. And that you're saying, what are the athletes doing to improve power? How does that improve power? How does that improvement in power improve performance? Thanks for your time and attention, gentlemen.